Mark's boots hit the gleaming floor of the alien palace with a hollow, echoing sound. The walls shimmered with colors that shifted subtly, like sunlight over a river, yet nothing on Earth had ever looked like this. He had been sent to Violia as part of a routine human delegation. Well, at least he thought it would be routine. Now, standing in the main hall, he realized that routine here meant nothing he had imagined. The palace was enormous, stretching upward in impossible curves. Hovering platforms carried servants in silent, graceful arcs, their faces calm and expressionless. Strange symbols glowed faintly along the walls, and every corner hummed softly, as if the building itself were alive. Mark felt a twinge of awe, mixed with a creeping fear. Humans had come to other planets before, but never like this. Never with an audience as powerful and alien as the Violian court. A voice, melodic and firm, cut through the quiet. "You may enter." Mark turned to see her. The alien Princess Lyra walked down a platform that seemed to float on air, her presence commanding yet strangely alluring. She was tall, taller than most humans, with skin that shimmered faintly with silver hues. Her eyes glowed a soft violet, and when they landed on Mark, he felt as if she could see right into his mind. "You are Mark?" she asked, her voice smooth but carrying authority. "The human engineer?" He swallowed, nodding quickly. "Yes, Your Highness." His voice sounded small in the vast hall. I am honored to meet you." Lyra raised an eyebrow, her gaze sharp. "Honor is meaningless without action. You are here now. You will do as I demand." Mark froze. He had expected formalities, greetings, maybe even a tour of their technology, but a demand. Already, his mind raced. What could she possibly want from him? Humans were considered clever, yes, but unpredictable. Perhaps she wanted him to repair something, or maybe demonstrate human ingenuity. I will try my best," he said cautiously. Lyra's expression shifted slightly. A tiny smile, almost imperceptible, appeared. "Try, you will do. There is no trial of failure here." Before he could respond, she motioned to a glowing pedestal in the center of the hall. Strange symbols floated above it in midair. "Touch it," she commanded. Mark hesitated. His mind screamed caution. Every sci-fi story he had ever read warned against touching alien artifacts. Yet every fiber of his training told him to obey first, learn later. He stepped forward. The pedestal was warm beneath his fingers, surprisingly smooth. And then it happened. A soft click echoed, and suddenly the symbols flared brightly. Alarms echoed through the palace, not loud like Earth alarms, but a resonant hum that vibrated in his chest. Platforms shifted, mechanical arms emerged from hidden recesses, and the air seemed to crackle. "What did I do?" Mark stammered. Lyra's violet eyes widened, not with anger, but with unmistakable interest. "You have triggered it," Mark frowned. "Triggered what?" "The protocol," she said, stepping closer. Her gaze softened, but her voice remained commanding. "The human has begun the ritual." Mark blinked. "Ritual, Before he could finish, a series of mechanical guardians emerged from hidden panels. They were tall, sleek, and their movements were precise and silent. Their eyes glowed a sharp red. Mark's heart raced. He had no weapons, no armor, nothing but his human wits. Lyra's gaze softened slightly. "Do not be afraid. The protocol tests those who touch it. Those who survive earn the respect of Violia. Those who fail, well, you must not fail." Mark felt his stomach twist. Respect was one thing. Surviving a test designed by aliens who had far superior technology and strategy, that was something else entirely. Okay," he said, forcing a smile that probably didn't reach his eyes. The first challenge appeared immediately. A corridor of shifting platforms opened before him. Each platform hovered over a pit filled with glowing liquid, moving unpredictably. Sensors hummed, detecting every motion. A misstep and Mark could fall, or worse, trigger further alarms. He swallowed hard. Humans were not designed for alien agility, but humans were resourceful. He examined the patterns. The platforms moved in a sequence, almost musical in rhythm. He noted the delay, timed his steps, and began moving carefully, one foot after another. As he progressed, Lyra watched silently from above, her hands folded behind her back. Occasionally, her head tilted, as if analyzing him. Mark felt the weight of her gaze, yet he moved with growing confidence. Humans might lack the natural advantages of Violians, but they made up for it with ingenuity. He noticed tiny markings on the platforms that indicated safe landings. His mind, trained to observe and adapt, picked up the subtle hints. Halfway through, a sudden shift occurred. One of the platforms began to sink faster than the others. Mark froze for a split second, then jumped, relying on sheer instinct. His boots landed securely and the platform stabilized. A small thrill ran through him. One challenge down, but he knew this was only the beginning. The next trial tested more than agility. A chamber opened, filled with holographic projections of the palace, the guards, and intricate patterns of energy flowing along the walls. Mark was expected to recreate the correct energy alignment using floating consoles and alien symbols. He studied the projections. They were complex, but he noticed patterns familiar to him, sequences similar to human circuitry and basic physics principles. He hesitated for a moment. If he guessed wrong, the Guardians might strike or the chamber might seal. Mark took a deep breath, steadying his racing heart. Humans had a history of improvisation, of making the impossible possible under pressure. He began adjusting the consoles, following intuition and observation rather than rote memorization. A hum filled the room. Lights blinked, the energy flowed correctly, and the hologram stabilized. The challenge accepted him as its victor. Mark exhaled slowly, relief flooding him, but also a growing awareness of something extraordinary. He was doing something no human had ever done before on Violia. Lyra descended slowly, her expression unreadable. She stopped just a few feet from him. "Interesting," she said softly. "No human has completed this stage without guidance. You improvise with courage. Perhaps there is more to you than I imagined." Mark swallowed, not trusting his voice. I didn't mean to impress anyone. I just—" She raised a hand, stopping him. "You did not mean to. That is typical human audacity. You act without knowing the consequences. And yet you survive. That is why the protocol chose you." Mark frowned. "The protocol chose me?" Lyra's eyes glinted. "Yes. By touching the pedestal, you initiated a chain of events designed to test an outsider. Few survive, fewer still impress. You have begun a path that may lead to alliances, power, or danger, and your choices will determine all three." Mark's mind spun. Alliances, power, danger. He had hoped for a calm diplomatic mission. Now he was in the middle of a ritual he didn't understand, facing challenges he couldn't predict. And yet, he couldn't deny a spark of excitement. Humans thrived on challenges. They survived where others failed. They adapted where others hesitated. A new chamber opened behind Lyra, glowing softly. "Your next task begins now," she said. "Move quickly, observe everything, fail nothing." Mark glanced at the Guardians, then at the chamber, and then at the princess. He nodded. "Understood." Lyra's faint smile returned. "Good. Remember, human survival is not enough. You must act with intelligence, courage, and heart. The protocol observes all. Make your choices wisely." As he stepped forward, he felt the floor hum beneath his boots and the air shimmered around him. Each step was a test. Each decision carried weight. And somewhere deep inside, Mark felt a surge of determination. Humans might be strangers here. Humans might be fragile, but humans had something Violians did not. They could think unpredictably, act boldly, and survive against impossible odds. The first part of his unintended journey had begun, and Mark, the human engineer, realized he was no longer just a visitor. He was a participant in a test that would challenge everything he knew about courage, ingenuity, and the strange, mesmerizing world of the alien princess. The shadows of the palace shifted as he moved forward. Guardians followed silently, and symbols glowed along the walls as if marking his progress. Every moment counted. Every mistake was dangerous. And yet Mark felt alive in a way he never had before. Humans survived by turning chaos into opportunity, and this, he realized, was the ultimate stage for that skill. As the chamber doors slid closed behind him, Mark took a deep breath and whispered under his breath, "Let's see what humans can really do." And with that, he stepped into the unknown, ready to face whatever the protocol and the alien princess would throw at him next. Mark stepped cautiously into the new chamber. The walls shimmered like liquid glass, reflecting patterns of light that twisted and changed constantly. The air hummed faintly, vibrating in a way that made his teeth tingle. Guardians moved along the walls, silent and watchful, their red eyes tracking every motion. He knew instinctively that the first chamber had been only a warm-up. This was the real test. The room stretched endlessly, yet within it floated dozens of puzzles. Floating platforms with spinning symbols, energy fields, and strange, hovering machines that emitted soft pulses of light. Each seemed more complicated than anything Mark had seen in the first chamber. "Think, Mark," he muttered under his breath. "Think like a human." Humans thrived on creativity and adaptation. They solved problems that were impossible on paper. They survived when others failed. He had to remember that. The first puzzle involved a series of energy bridges that appeared only when touched in the correct sequence. If he stepped incorrectly, the bridge would vanish, and he would fall into the glowing pit beneath. He studied the patterns, noticing faint vibrations in the floor and walls that hinted at the correct path. With careful timing and deliberate steps, he began moving. His boots barely made a sound as he jumped from bridge to bridge, adjusting his balance with every step. A sudden pulse shot through the floor, making one bridge flicker. Instinctively, Mark leaped forward, landing safely on the next platform. His heart pounded, but he grinned. Humans didn't just survive by luck, they survived by noticing, adapting, and acting fast. Beyond the energy bridges lay a chamber filled with strange mechanical locks. Each lock displayed alien symbols that rotated slowly, and Mark was expected to align them correctly. He could see the patterns, repeated sequences that suggested a logic he could follow, but he had no guide, no instructions. Mark's fingers brushed over the controls, tracing the shapes. He remembered Earth's old combination locks and how the slightest hint of rhythm or repetition could reveal the solution. Applying that logic, he began adjusting the symbols one by one. The locks clicked softly, and the chamber hummed in approval. One by one, the locks aligned, and a hidden passage opened before him. He paused, breathing heavily. The challenges were exhausting, but he felt something building inside him, confidence. The protocol had been designed to intimidate and overwhelm outsiders. But Mark realized humans had an advantage, unpredictability. Where the Violians relied on precision and ritual, humans could improvise, think outside the rules, and act with boldness. A sudden sound startled him. A guardian moved into the passage ahead, blocking his path. It extended a long, mechanical arm, aiming at him. Mark froze for a second, then remembered something. In the first chamber, small markings had indicated safe paths. Maybe the protocol was leaving hints intentionally. He crouched, ducking beneath the arm, and rolled to the side. The Guardian recalibrated, but Mark was already moving, using its brief pause to sprint across the chamber. He felt a rush of adrenaline. Humans weren't naturally faster or stronger than aliens like Violians, but they were clever, and cleverness could overcome brute force. The next challenge was even stranger. A holographic projection appeared, showing the layout of the entire palace. Symbols on the map blinked rapidly, highlighting areas he had already passed and new sections he hadn't yet explored. The hologram shifted, forming a maze that seemed impossible to navigate. Mark studied it carefully. He noticed patterns, corners where the lights always blinked twice, straight paths that repeated the same shapes. Slowly, he traced a path with his hand, imagining himself moving through the maze. Then, with a deep breath, he stepped forward. As he walked, the room seemed to respond to his choices. Walls shifted slightly, opening paths he hadn't expected. Small platforms rose to help him cross gaps, and the maze seemed to acknowledge his human logic. Mark realized the protocol wasn't just a test of skill. It was observing how he thought, how he reacted, and how he adapted. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time was difficult to measure in the shifting lights of the palace. Each test was more complex than the last, requiring a combination of agility, reasoning, and courage. At one point, he faced a chamber filled with flowing energy streams that moved unpredictably, cutting across the floor and walls. One wrong step could fry him instantly. Mark hesitated, then noticed a faint vibration in the floor. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it suggested the energy streams followed a rhythm. Timing his movements carefully, he dashed across the room, sliding under one stream and leaping over another. When he reached the other side, he felt a surge of pride. He was alive. He had survived where others might have failed. Finally, he reached a chamber where the protocol became personal. Holographic images of him appeared, projected in 3 dimensions. They showed him making choices, helping a small alien child, sacrificing his own safety to save someone else, standing firm when threatened. The protocol was testing his moral judgment. Mark understood. Humans were valued not just for strength or skill, but for character. The aliens wanted to see if he could make difficult choices, guided by empathy and courage, rather than fear or self-interest. He stepped forward, and the holograms reacted instantly. He chose to protect the virtual child, even though it meant risking a simulated attack. Lights flashed, alarms sounded, but the projection stabilized. He had made the right choice. The chamber doors slid open, and Lyra appeared, descending gracefully from above. Her violet eyes glimmered with curiosity and approval. "Remarkable," she said softly. "You think differently than any human I have encountered before. You improvise, you act with courage, and you choose wisely, yet you have more challenges ahead." Mark nodded, feeling a mixture of pride and exhaustion. I just do what seems right," he admitted. "I don't know if it's the best way, but it's the way I know." Lyra smiled faintly, a rare warmth touching her expression. "That is precisely what the protocol seeks, not perfection, not ritual obedience. It seeks the spark of life, the unpredictability, the courage to act when others hesitate. You possess it in abundance." Suddenly, a warning light flashed. A massive chamber opened ahead, filled with swirling energy fields and floating platforms. Guardians materialized instantly, blocking the way forward. Mark realized this was the final test of this stage, a combination of agility, logic, and courage all at once. He stepped forward carefully. Energy streams shifted around him, platforms moved in unpredictable patterns, and he had to jump, duck, and climb with precision. His heart pounded, sweat dripped down his forehead, yet he moved with focus, adapting to every change. Halfway through, a platform started sinking rapidly beneath him. Without thinking, he leaped, grabbed a floating ledge, and swung to the next safe platform. The Guardians recalibrated, but he had already moved beyond their immediate threat. Finally, he reached the center of the chamber. A console hovered before him, filled with alien symbols that rotated slowly. This was the culmination of everything he had learned so far. He studied the symbols carefully, remembering every pattern he had noticed, every subtle hint the protocol had left. Slowly, deliberately, he adjusted them one by one. The chamber hummed. Lights flashed, then stabilized. The energy fields dissipated and the platform stopped moving. Mark exhaled deeply, exhaustion and relief washing over him. He had passed the stage. Lyra descended to stand beside him. "You continue to impress," she said. "No human has ever passed this far without guidance. You rely on your mind, your courage, and your instincts. That is why you are chosen." Mark shook his head, still catching his breath. "I didn't choose this, I just reacted." Lyra's violet eyes glinted. "Sometimes that is enough. Sometimes reaction reveals more than planning. The protocol observes everything, and it has seen in you what no ritual or teaching could produce. You are human, and that is your strength." Mark felt a surge of pride. Humans were often underestimated, seen as fragile or impulsive. Yet here he was, surviving tests designed by an alien civilization far advanced beyond his own. He had relied on ingenuity, courage, and morality, qualities that no machine or ritual could replicate. Lyra stepped back, her expression thoughtful. "Rest now, human. The next stage will test more than your skill. It will test your character, your judgment, and your heart. But for now, you have done well." Mark nodded, still breathing heavily, but he felt a quiet determination settle within him. He had survived the protocol's first real challenges, and in doing so, he had begun to prove something fundamental. Humans were capable of extraordinary things, even among beings far superior in technology and strength. As he settled on a resting platform, Mark looked around at the vast, shimmering palace. He realized that every challenge he faced here was not just a test of survival, but a demonstration of what humans could do when pushed to the edge. And he knew deep down that he was only beginning to scratch the surface of what this alien world and the princess would demand. For the first time since he had arrived, Mark allowed himself a small smile. Humans had faced impossible odds before. Humans had survived against overwhelming forces. And now, even on a world as alien as Vyrlia, humans still had their edge. He didn't know what the next stage would bring. He didn't know what the protocol would ask of him. But he did know one thing. He would face it with courage, with ingenuity, and with a heart that refused to yield. And that, he realized, was why humans were different. That, he realized, was why he might just succeed where others would fail. Mark rose from the resting platform, stretching stiff muscles that ached from the challenges of the first two stages. The palace seemed quieter now, yet there was an underlying energy in the walls, a constant reminder that he was still within the protocol. Every surface, every shimmer of light seemed to watch him. The alien Princess Lyra's words echoed in his mind. "The next stage will test more than your skill. It will test your character, your judgment, and your heart." he stepped forward into a long corridor. Floating lights illuminated the path ahead, casting reflections on walls that shimmered like liquid silver. Guardians moved silently along the edges, their red eyes scanning for missteps. Mark felt a surge of tension. The final stage was near. He could feel it in the subtle vibrations beneath his boots and in the shifting patterns of light on the walls. A doorway appeared at the end of the corridor, framed by intricate alien symbols that pulsed softly. Mark took a deep breath, reminding himself that humans had faced impossible odds before, and somehow they had always survived. With careful steps, he approached the doorway. As he crossed its threshold, the room transformed. It was vast, stretching in every direction, yet somehow enclosed. In the center floated a massive holographic sphere, rotating slowly, filled with alien symbols and flowing streams of energy. The air was thick with a low hum, and every step Mark took seemed to echo unnaturally. Around the sphere, platforms hovered, connected by thin energy bridges that shifted unpredictably. Mark realized immediately that this was the final test, a combination of agility, intellect, and moral judgment. He stepped carefully onto the first platform. The energy beneath his boots flickered, then stabilized. One wrong step could end the protocol and possibly his life. He studied the sphere. Patterns emerged, subtle movements that suggested a rhythm. By observing carefully, he could anticipate the motion of the platforms. He took a deep breath and began moving, timing his steps with precision, leaping and sliding as needed. The energy bridges shifted beneath him, but he adapted, adjusting each movement in real time. Halfway across, a sudden pulse shot through the room. The sphere glowed brightly, and holographic projections appeared around him. They depicted scenarios, alien civilians trapped in danger, innocent creatures at risk, even Lyra herself, shown in symbolic peril. The protocol was testing not just his skill, but his judgment and courage. Mark hesitated, considering his options. Each choice had consequences. He could save one projection, ignore another, or attempt the impossible, to protect all simultaneously. He remembered the lessons of the previous chambers. Humans succeeded not by following rules blindly, but by thinking creatively, taking risks, and acting with moral clarity. He focused, analyzing each projection. Timing, placement, and strategy became crucial. Using quick improvisation, he manipulated the platforms and energy streams, positioning himself to reach each holographic scenario. It required split-second decisions, leaps of faith, and clever use of the shifting environment. For several tense minutes, Mark moved through the room, heart pounding, mind sharp. Each time he succeeded, the holographic projections reacted, stabilizing in response. He realized that the protocol was not punishing mistakes, it was observing how he solved problems under pressure. Human ingenuity and courage were being weighed against alien precision and logic. Finally, he reached the central sphere. Its surface shimmered, filled with symbols that seemed impossible to understand. Mark studied them carefully. There was a pattern, a sequence that relied on intuition as much as knowledge. Slowly, deliberately, he adjusted the symbols, aligning them in a way that resonated with his understanding of rhythm, logic, and morality. The sphere pulsed brightly. The energy around him stabilized, and the platforms became solid. The chamber hummed with approval, a deep resonance that vibrated through his chest. He had completed the final stage of the protocol. At that moment, Lyra descended gracefully from above, her violet eyes glowing with admiration. She approached Mark slowly, her presence commanding yet strangely warm. "You have done what no human has ever done," she said softly. "You have completed the protocol not by force, not by obedience, but through courage, creativity, and moral strength. You are remarkable." Mark felt a mixture of relief and disbelief. I didn't mean to do anything special," he admitted, wiping sweat from his forehead. "I just acted the only way I knew how." Lyra's gaze softened, a hint of a smile touching her lips. "That is precisely why you succeeded. The protocol observes, yes, but it also judges the soul behind the actions. You acted with a heart, with intelligence, and with courage. That is something no ritual, no advanced technology, and no alien tradition could teach. That is human." Mark felt pride swell within him, not arrogance, but a deep recognition of what humans could achieve when faced with the impossible. All his training, all his instincts, all his experiences had led him to this moment. Humans were fragile in many ways, yes, but they had a spark of ingenuity, morality, and courage that could shine even in the most alien circumstances. Lyra extended a hand, not in command, but in respect. "Mark, you have proven yourself beyond expectation. You are not just a guest here, you are a bridge between our worlds, a symbol of what humans can achieve. I trust you, and I welcome you to continue walking this path with me." Mark hesitated, then took her hand. It was firm, yet gentle. He felt the weight of responsibility settle upon him, but also an exhilarating sense of possibility. He had survived, yes, but he had also earned the respect of one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. That respect was not given lightly, and it meant more than survival. It meant trust, recognition, and opportunity. As they stood together in the chamber, the palace around them seemed to respond. Lights shimmered, platforms adjusted, and the guardians lowered their vigilance. The protocol, in essence, had accepted him. He was no longer just a visitor or a participant. He was a recognized part of the alien world, capable of contributing, adapting, and influencing. Lyra's eyes sparkled with curiosity. "I wonder," she said softly, almost to herself, "what other challenges this human can face. The protocol is complete, but the journey is only beginning." Mark smiled, feeling a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. "Then I suppose I should be ready," he said. "Whatever comes next, I'll face it, the way humans always do." Lyra nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Indeed, humans are unpredictable, courageous, clever, and sometimes the very things we do not expect from you are what make you extraordinary. You have reminded me that strength is not only in power or technology, but in character, in ingenuity, and in heart." For the first time since arriving on Violia, Mark felt truly at ease. The palace, the challenges, the guardians, they were all part of a test, yes, but he had passed. Not by luck, not by following rules, but by being human, and being human had never failed him before. He looked around at the shimmering walls, the floating platforms, and the endless corridors. He knew the journey was far from over. The galaxy was vast, the aliens' plans complex, and the challenges he would face in the future would test him in ways he could not yet imagine. But he also knew something important. Humans had a spark that could not be measured by alien technology or tradition. It was ingenuity, it was courage, it was morality, it was the ability to act even when the odds seemed impossible. And that spark had carried him through the most difficult trials of the Violian protocol. Lyra stepped closer, her voice soft but firm. "Mark, there is one final lesson the protocol imparts. It is not only about skill or bravery. It is about partnership, trust, and understanding. You have shown all of these. You have proven that even among beings far superior in strength, intelligence, and technology, humans possess something unique, something worth respecting." Mark nodded, feeling the truth in her words. He realized that the protocol had not just tested him, it had revealed a deeper truth. Humans were underestimated because their greatest strengths were not always obvious. Their courage, creativity, and moral compass could achieve what others thought impossible. The chamber lights shifted, bathing the room in a gentle glow. Guardians retracted, the holographic sphere dissolved, and a sense of calm settled over the palace. Mark exhaled, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment and belonging. He had survived, yes, but more importantly, he had earned respect. Lyra's gaze lingered on him, a rare warmth in her expression. "Mark, you are not just a human engineer," she said. "You are a testament to what your kind can achieve, and I am curious to see where your path leads next. The protocol is complete, but your journey has only just begun." Mark smiled, a mixture of exhaustion, pride, and excitement in his eyes. "Then I suppose I'd better be ready," he said quietly. "Whatever comes next, I'll face it as only a human can." And with that, the alien princess and the human engineer stood together, at the threshold of new adventures, each aware of the extraordinary bond formed not through commands or orders, but through courage, ingenuity, and respect. Mark knew the galaxy was full of unknown dangers, impossible challenges, and alien mysteries. But for the first time, he also knew this. Humanity had a spark that could shine anywhere. And as long as he stayed true to that spark, no protocol, no alien, and no challenge could ever truly stop him. The palace doors shimmered open to reveal a galaxy full of possibilities. And Mark, human, engineer, and now proven participant in an alien ritual, stepped forward into the future, ready to face whatever awaited him, with courage, creativity, and the unmistakable heart of a human.